Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivadikaya Ashtatara Shatashi Srimad Divine Grace of Bhai Narvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nithaya Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bo Namo Vishnu Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Uvacha. Sorry, before we continue, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 19, entitled The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha, text number 31. Maitreya Uvacha. Evam Hiranyaksha Masaya Vikramam. Evam Hiranyaksham Asahya Vikramam Sasadayitva Harir Adisukaraha Sasadayitva Harir Adisukaraha Jagamalokam Swam Akhanditotsavam Jagamalokam Swam Akhanditotsavam Samidita Pushkara Vishtaradibihi Samidita Pushkara Vishtaradibihi Maitreya Uvacha Evam Hiranyakshamasaya Vikramam Sasadayitva Harir Adisukaraha Jagamalokam Swamakanditotsavam Samidita Pushkara Vishtaradibi Maitreya Uvacha Evam Hiranyakshamasaya Vikramam Sasadayitva Harir Adisukaraha Jagamalokam Swamakanditotsavam Samidita Pushkara Vishtaradibihi Maitreya Sasadayitva Hairadishukaraha Jagamalokam Swamahanditotsavam Samedita Pushkara Vishtaradibihi Maitreya Uvacha evam hiranyakshamasaya vikramam sasadayitva hariradishukaraha jagamalokam swamakanditotsavam samedita pushkara vishtaradibihi. Mataji. Maitreya Vacha evam hiranyakshamasaya vikramam sasadayitva hariradishukaraha jagamalokam swamakanditotsavam samidita pushkara samstradibihi. Word for word. Maitreya Uvacha. Sri Maitreya said, Evam, thus. Hiranyaksham, Hiranyaksha, Asaya Vikramam, very powerful. Saha, the Lord, Sadayitva, after killing. Harihi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adisukaraha, the origin of the boar species. Jagama, returned. Lokam, to his abode. Swam, own. Akandita, uninterrupted. Utsavam, festival. Samiditaha, being praised. Pushkara Vishtara, lotus seat, by Lord Brahma, whose seat is a lotus. Adibihi, and the others. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhayacharya Naravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Sri Maitreya continued, after thus killing the most formidable demon Hiranyaksha, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, returned to his own abode, where there is always an uninterrupted festival. The Lord was praised by all the demigods, headed by Brahma. Purport. The Lord is spoken of herewith as the origin of the boar species. As stated in the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.2, the absolute truth is the origin of everything. Therefore, it is understood that all 8.4 million species of bodily forms originate from the Lord, who is always Adi, or the beginning. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna addresses the Lord as Adyam, or the original. Similarly, in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord is addressed as Adi Purusham, the original person. Indeed, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, text 8, the Lord himself declares, Matta sarvam pravartate, from me everything proceeds. In this situation, the Lord assumed the shape of a boar to kill the demon Hiranyaksha and pick up the earth from the Garbha ocean. Thus he became Adi Sukara, the original boar. In the material world, a boar or a pig is considered most abominable, but the Adi Sukara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was not treated as an ordinary boar. Even Lord Brahma and the other demigods praise the Lord's form as a boar. The verse confirms the statement in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears as He is from His transcendental abode for the sake of killing the miscreants and saving the devotees. By killing the demon Hiranyaksha, He fulfilled His promise to kill the demons and always protect the demigods headed by Brahma. The statement that the Lord returned to His own abode indicates that He has His own particular transcendental residence. Since He is full of all energies, He is all-pervasive, in spite of His residing in Goloka Vrindavan, Just as the sun, although situated in a particular place within the universe, is present by its sunshine throughout the universe. Although the Lord has his particular abode in which to reside, he is all-pervasive. The impersonalists accept one aspect of the Lord's features, the all-pervasive aspect, but they cannot understand his localized situation in his transcendental abode, where he always engages in fully transcendental pastimes. Especially mentioned in this verse is the word Utsava. Utsava means pleasure. Wherever some function takes place to express happiness, it is called Utsava. Utsava, the expression of complete happiness, is always present in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the abode of the Lord, who is worshipable even by demigods like Brahma, to say nothing of other less important entities such as human beings. The Lord descends from his abode to this world, and therefore he is called Avatar, which means one who descends. Sometimes Avatar is understood to refer to an incarnation who assumes a material form of flesh and bone, but actually Avatar refers to one who descends from higher regions. The Lord's abode is situated far above this material sky, and he descends from that higher position. Thus he is called Avatar. Translation again. Sri Maitreya continued, after thus killing the most formidable demon Hiranyaksha, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, returned to his own abode, where there is always an uninterrupted festival. The Lord was praised by all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're continuing with the pastimes of Lord Varahadev. After Varahadev kills Hiranyaksha, the demigods approach him and offer a few words of glorification. Maitreya Rishi explains in yesterday's verse that the demigods address the Lord, all obeisances unto you. You are the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and you have assumed the form of a boar, in pure goodness for the purpose of maintaining the world. Fortunately for us, this demon who was a torment to the world has been slain by you, and we too, O Lord, are now at ease in devotion to your lotus feet. And Maitreya Muni is continuing to touch on that main point here, that yes, we have the pastime, and the pastime is talking about how after the Lord had finished saving Bhumi Devi, the Mother Earth, and after he had slain Hiranyaksha, then he decided to return to his own abode, where there's an uninterrupted festival, Akhanditat Savam. Akhandita means uninterrupted, and Utsava means festival. So Prabhupada touches upon this in this purport. But we'll just go through the purport step by step, because Prabhupada's touching different aspects of the verse. When Prabhupada first established Srimad Bhagavatam class, one of the things, if you read, I was reading this from the Great Transcendental Adventure by Kurma Prabhu. There is explaining that Madhudvisa Maharaj at that time had received a letter from Prabhupada. And in that letter, Prabhupada says that now we should establish Srimad Bhagavatam class every morning. It should be a regular program. And the whole purpose is to understand Srimad Bhagavatam from different perspectives, from different angles. And in this way become more and more Krishna conscious. Of course, I'm simply paraphrasing. But the point here is Prabhupada wanted us to understand more and more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, from different angles of perception, or different perspectives. So here in this purport, or rather in this verse, Maitreya Rishi is talking about a few things here, and Prabhupada is choosing to highlight some main points. Because the theme so far here is to talk about how Varahadev is the incarnation of the Lord in the form of a boar. And it seems to be such a contradictory position to be in, because a boar is considered to be in the worst or the abominable state of life, which means they're in the lowest mode of ignorance. And they're considered to be the most, in one sense, filthy living entities, because they are completely absorbed in dark activities. Prabhupada, quoting Prabhupada says there that they simply eat stool, they live in a dirty place, and they perform other abominable activities. But here the Supreme Lord has appeared in such a form. So immediately what it brings to mind, or the doubt that comes to our minds, is that how is the Lord is appearing in such a form? How can He appear in such a form? And the doubt then further expands to a very common doubt that the impersonalists have. That when the Lord appears into the material world, is that really His form? Is that really Him? Or is it just, some sort of covering? Like how an actor puts on clothes. Is it just like does He appear just like us in this material world, in other words? Is He just another ordinary living entity? So here that theme, or that main point that's being mentioned here, is that although the Lord appears like a boar, He's completely transcendental. And this point is being emphasized by Maitreya Muni till the very end. Adi Sukaraha, the original boar. Prabhupada translates that Adi Sukara to the origin of the boar species. Now if you just take that as the origin of the boar species, then again you become bewildered. So that means He's like the progenitor of all boars. So that must mean that He must have a body like that of a boar. No, Prabhupada says here that Adi means the beginning. So as Krishna says in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 8, Matta sarvam pravartate, Prabhupada's quoting in the purport, from me everything proceeds. So the Lord is mentioning that from Him everything emanates. And the whole Srimad Bhagavatam till this point emphasizes that. Do you remember in the previous canto where it's spoken about Janmadi Yasya Yataha, how everything emanates from the Supreme Lord. From the Lord came the different incarnations, came the Purusha avatars. Then the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. We heard about them, and how from the Lord's pores come all the universes, and how He then enters into each universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then He expands throughout the whole universe as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. So you see, everything comes originally from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So this point here of Adi Sukara doesn't refer to the fact that, He's the boar from which all boars came from, in the sense of in the material sense. But here Prabhupada's mentioning that all 8.4 species of bodily forms originate from the Lord. But He remains untouched. This is the wonderful qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That although He institutes the material nature, the three modes within the material nature, still He's unaffected by them. He's not forced to follow the structure of the three modes of nature. The example given, Prabhupada often gives this example, is of that of a king. Right? The king may put forth many laws and may govern the country in that way. But the king himself is above the laws. Another example Prabhupada gives is that when the king enters into the prison, that doesn't mean the king becomes a prisoner. Right? He can walk out. He can walk in, he can walk out, unaffected. But the prisoners are prisoners, they get stuck there. The king has the privilege or has the prerogative to actually bring the prisoners out, even past their or before their term finishes. But the king is unaffected by all of these things. What the prisoner did, for what reason the prisoner did whatever they had to do, why they're there, the Lord is unaffected by all of that. The Lord simply gives facilities, like the king gives facilities, and it's up to the citizens to either abide by the laws and live in harmony with the rest of society, or to go against it and then end up in the prison. But the king is not to blame for any of that. Similarly, the Lord is not to blame for any of that. Another perspective of this example of the king is that Prabhupada explains that the energies of the Lord Janmadi yasyataha, everything emanates from Him. The energies of the Lord, this whole universe, they're governed by the Lord. But it's not the Lord, although the Lord says it is Him. Matstani sarva bhutani na chaham teshvavastitaha. There's that verse, and the next verse he says, Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brinnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. There in the 9th chapter, Krishna is mentioning that everything rests in me and I am in everything. But at the same time, I am not in it and they are not in me. So he gives this sort of very vague, apparently very vague or contradictory statement. But there it's mentioned that Krishna is speaking from, you can understand from different perspectives. That everything emanates from Him, that's a given. That He is in everything, that's His all-pervasive aspect. Remember in the beginning of Bhagavatam, we heard this verse, Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabdyate. That the absolute truth is known in 3 aspects. Does anyone know these 3 aspects? Yeah. Yeah, so Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. They are progressive understanding of the absolute truth. Bhagavan being the most complete understanding of the supreme absolute truth. But there's the all-pervasive aspect, Brahman. So Krishna in this verse is referring to that aspect. But at the same time, he's showing Arjuna, Pasya me yogam aishwaram. Just see my wonderful qualities, my wonderful energies. Just see my mystic power. That although I am in them and they are in me, I'm completely aloof. I'm not there. This is the Bhagavan aspect. And later on in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, again Krishna will refer to that aspect of Himself. That although He is all-pervasive and all energies within the material world emanate from Him, they are just simply a spark of His splendor. Still, it is separate from Him. So, here, Janmadi yasyataha, this point is being made that, so coming back, so we have the king, the example of the king and his government. So the government is there, just like Krishna has his energies, and they govern the whole universe in the form of the demigods and material nature. Then also Krishna's, the king also has his government, which is governed by his ministers and other departments. But they are also considered to be the king in one sense, because they're carrying out the king's will. So in the same way, we understand the energy is non-different from the Lord, because it comes from the Lord and it's just simply functioning out of the Lord's will. What is material, or the material nature, is when we are, or our consciousness is that of something different to the Lord, or independent, a separatist mentality. When we want to lord over material nature, or we want to lord over Krishna's energy, then it becomes material. But that's just a perception from our side. The Lord sees all of His energies as spiritual. They're always His. Just like how we see electrical energy becomes heat or becomes cool air or hot air. In the same way the Lord simply sees that energy. We may perceive it, hot, cold, but the Lord perceives it as the original energy coming from Himself. So here that's in one sense the basis of this understanding, because what then Maitreya Muni talks about is that he returned to his own abode. The impersonalists don't accept this. I'll just take a step back. We often, more than we expect, Prabhupada always hammers on this point of impersonalism. And I was reading from the 10th chapter or the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita the other day. And here Prabhupada's mentioning a very interesting point in the purport that I never saw before. That Prabhupada's saying that this is in reference to Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto. There's this one famous commentary by one impersonalist wherein he says that we should not surrender to Krishna but the unborn within. And this whole purport, Prabhupada's just hammering this one concept, that Krishna and Krishna's body is different. And there Prabhupada says that we should listen from bona fide source. We should not listen from any mundane speculator. And what does Prabhupada say? He says that this knowledge that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have several times explained that his body is not material, but is eternal blissful knowledge. So then Prabhupada says this kind of talk about Krishna will help one become a devotee. We often take it for granted, well at least I take it for granted, what Prabhupada has given to us so easily and simply, we've just somehow or other accepted. But this knowledge that we have within this Krishna consciousness movement, it takes many, many lifetimes for an ordinary living entity to be able to understand. What to speak of an ordinary living entity? A Jnanavan, one who's in knowledge, it takes them many, many, many lifetimes to come to the point of Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that Krishna is everything, he is the origin. But Prabhupada has just given it to us straight. We don't have to search the Vedas, we don't have to search the Puranas, we don't have to find out some sort of sage in the forest of the Himalayas, we don't have to do anything. In fact, in this age of Kali, we're technically not supposed to have this knowledge of the soul. It's the darkest age. It's an age where everyone is completely absorbed in quarrel and hypocrisy, the lower modes of nature of passion and ignorance. But by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are given this knowledge. We are given Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is giving us Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are very fortunate to get this knowledge. So whenever we come across this point where Prabhupada's hammering the impersonalists, actually Prabhupada's hammering that point that's within our consciousness, that small doubt that may appear that, is Krishna one of us? Is Krishna really the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Is he really different from us? Because being in the modes of material nature, forgetfulness is very easy. We easily forget Krishna's position and we become very complacent. So here Prabhupada's emphasizing that point. Prabhupada's also emphasizing the point of Adi Sukara, the original boar. In the material world, a boar or a pig is considered to be most abominable, but the Adi Sukara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was not treated as an ordinary boar. How is that? Maitreya Muni talks about how the demigods refer to the Lord as being transcendental. Maitreya Muni is not saying it himself. He's saying the highest living entities in this material world, headed by Lord Brahma, they're worshipping the Lord as transcendental, although he has appeared in the form of a boar. And I think we've already touched it, or we're going to come across it. I think we've already touched it. The sages, once they see Lord Varahadev, the different aspects of the Lord's body, they equate that to yagya, or the different paraphernalia of the yagya, of performing yagya. Like for example, his nose represents one particular instrument used in the yagya to offer ghee into the fire. So by showing that, they're showing that the Lord's form is non-different from the yagya. In other words, his form is transcendental, it's not material. And again, they're emphasizing and offering their obeisances. They're not fools. They don't just simply out of sentiment do things. These personalities are the topmost living entities in the material world. And Prabhupada's mentioning later on in the purport that Krishna, whose abode is Vaikuntha Loka, is worshipable even by demigods like Brahma, to say nothing other of less important entities such as human beings. So you need to understand the position of the demigods, and you need to understand our position in relation to them. So in one sense, they are authorities, and they're making this point. Now, Prabhupada then touches on the point. So if the Lord appears in the form of a boar, why? Why did he appear in the form of a boar? And then he says, Prabhupada quotes the verse, Parshanaya sadhunam vinashaya chatushkritam dharma samstarpanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. That he appears to annihilate the miscreants and protect the devotees, and also re-establish religion. So the Lord appearing as a boar is doing these activities. He's protecting the demigods and he's killing the demon, Hiranyaksha. And he's also establishing the Vedic principles or dharma. Then what does he do after that? He doesn't hang around for too long. He goes back to his own abode. So he decides to go back to his own abode. Of course, there are tirthas here, like Pushkara Tirtha. Different tirthas are there where Lord Varahadev stays. In Navadvip, there is a place in one of the 9 islands where Lord Varahadev appears or stays. It's mentioned in Navadvip that all the holy places reside. So when you go to Navadvip and you go Navadvip Dham Parikrama, then you'll see all of these holy places. And you'll see one place where Lord Varahadev had been there. Like there's a very famous self-manifesting deity of Nrsingadev in a place called Nrsinghapalli. And there it's mentioned that after Nrsingadev had killed Hiranyakashipu, he wanted to wash his hands. So he went there to the lake and washed his hands, and it's mentioned the lake went slightly red. So if you go there, the lake has that slightly reddish hue there. And it's mentioned that he manifested a deity of himself there, and then he returned to his abode. So like that, it's mentioned in another place that Varahadev did the same thing. That after killing Hiranyaksha, he went and took rest somewhere else. That became a tirtha, and he went back home, back to his abode. So the Lord performs his transcendental activities for the pleasure of his devotees. So now we have places of pilgrimage where we can go and remember the Lord and glorify his pastimes. So the Lord always performs his activities for the benefit of his devotees. Like it's mentioned here that in the 11th canto, that when Krishna decided to leave the planet, he was thinking that he had, sufficiently performed what he had come down to achieve. That he had performed all these activities and pastimes to please his devotees at that point in time and also in the future. How? Because by performing these activities and devotees recalling these activities, other living entities also hear of such activities. And they also get to experience the Lord's pastimes in that way as well. Just like us, we're hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead killing the demon Hiranyaksha. Completely beyond our conception, completely beyond our imagination. But we're given this opportunity here as if we were there watching the whole scene. It's mentioned that in Ramayana, it's mentioned there's one particular personality, he's known as Jambavan. And Jambavan was given a special benediction that he'd be able to live for many, many, many yugas, to be able to see all the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's given that benediction, to be able to see all the different activities of all the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From Matsya all the way to Vamana, he got to see all of them. That was the benediction he received. And we are also getting that same benediction by being able to read from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we don't take that cheaply. And so we don't take that cheaply. Srila Prabhupada has given us the opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam daily. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Now the final point being mentioned here in Prabhupada's purport, or rather the second last point is Utsava, which means festival. As we know in the spiritual world, every word is a song, every step is a dance. Krishna's favorite or most intimate associate is the flute. The trees are desire trees. And the ground of Sri Vrindavan Dham is laid with jewels, Chintamani jewels. So in such a place, there's always a festival. And Prabhupada actually explains what festival means. And it's very nice because Janmashtami is coming up. So we can remember this. Especially mentioned in this verse is the word Akhanditotsavam. Utsava means pleasure. Whenever some function takes place to express happiness, it is called Utsava. Whenever a function takes place to express happiness, it's called Utsava. Utsava, the expression of complete happiness, is always present in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the abode of the Lord. So here Maitreya Muni is talking about how the Lord's abode is not simply just some void. It's not simply just some energy where one merges into and just ceases to exist. Rather, the Lord's abode is full of activity. The Lord's abode is full of bliss and happiness. In that abode, the living entity engages in a loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the main rasas we hear of, in Vatsalya, in Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhurya, in the 5 different rasas. And of course, there are the other secondary rasas. In exchanging such rasas, such tastes, they increase the pleasure more and more and more. And they develop a stronger relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can this point here, Utsava or Akhanditotsavam, uninterrupted festival, is a very nice meditation to have. Because, when you think about our existence in this mature world, at least I remember that when I just came to Krishna consciousness, every Sunday used to be a great festival because of the Sunday feast. And the worst part would be at 9:30 when you'd have to go home. When you'd have to drive home and you'd have to have this dreaded feeling that, I have to go to work or I have to go to uni tomorrow. And where's the festival, where's the happiness in that? But when you have Sunday coming around, you'll feel so ecstatic, come to the temple for the Sunday feast like that. So we have festivals throughout the year also. Janmashtami, Gaur Purnima, Julan Yatra, Balaram Jayanti, Radhashtami. We have all these festivals, an opportunity to develop more and more devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to express our gratitude to the Supreme Lord and to celebrate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have that feeling of wanting to have some sort of Utsava, some festival, some function to express happiness. Right? I remember once we were doing book distribution, and I was explaining, today's a festival and we're distributing books. And one person was like, yeah, you guys have so much color, Your festivals are just so much color, so much nice food, just dancing and color. And then, it dawned on me, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just full of happiness, just expression of joy. That's our festival. In the spiritual world, it's uninterrupted. Right? It's uninterrupted. What we experience in sort of short bursts in this material world due to our slow progression and advancement in Krishna consciousness, in the spiritual world, the pure devotees express or experience an Utsava or a festival at every moment. All the time it's a festival. It's a wonderful meditation to have, actually, if you think about it. Because we are naturally pleasure-seeking. We want to enjoy. And if there's a place where enjoyment is on tap, unlimited, that's such a wonderful meditation to have. Because in the material world, Maya continuously smashes your hopes to enjoy. Completely demolishes all hopes of enjoyment. And then she rebuilds it up again. Look at that person there enjoying, look at this, you could do that, why don't you try a second round, a third round here, you just made a mistake there, you can make you can just rectify it and continue forward. And then she smashes your hopes and desires then again and again and again. But because we are foolish, due to a poor fund of knowledge, Prabhupada says, that we continuously surrender to Maya again and again and again. Because we don't know of anything other than that. Whatever cheap, insignificant piece of happiness we experience here, we run after that with our tail between our legs like a dog. And we simply hanker after that drop of pleasure, or so-called pleasure. But when you hear about in the spiritual world, it's an ocean of enjoyment. It's so deep in that ocean that devotees are constantly going deeper and deeper and deeper, and the Lord is experiencing happiness and going deeper and deeper and deeper in such enjoyment. And we see that in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That it's mentioned that when the Pancha Tattva broke open the storehouse of love of God, they distributed it, and by their dancing, they made it accessible to all living entities. It means it continuously expands. They continued to taste the nectar of the holy name by chanting and dancing. It was ever fresh. Like this morning we were reading in in Namamrita. There, the verse that Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvam Nami Namino. That the name is non-different from the Lord. It's completely liberated. And this name is like a touchstone, a Chintamani jewel, gem. There's this story that one Brahmana, a worshipper of Lord Shiva, due to his consistent sadhana and worship, had pleased Lord Shiva. And when Lord Shiva appeared, then he asked Lord Shiva, I'm performing all these activities, and the Lord says, yes, take a benediction. So then he asked Lord Shiva, what is the best thing I can get? I want the best benediction. So then Lord Shiva says, you go and meet Sanatana Goswami, he has it. So then this Brahmana reaches Vrindavan and he finds Sanatana Goswami in his bhajan kutir. And so then he asks Sanatana Goswami, I've come here, I want to get the best benediction. I want something very valuable. So then Sanatana Goswami says, if you want something valuable, you want to get some material wealth, go outside. You can see it there. And in the rubbish, this Brahmana saw a touchstone. And so he was thinking, if that's valuable materially, then he must have something more. If it's in the rubbish bin, then it must be something very insignificant. There must be something more. So then this Brahmana went back in and asked Sanatana Goswami, that how come you've left this one here? It's meant to be the most valuable object. You can get gold, you can get everything you want. How come it's there? Then he said that actually that's not the most valuable or the most greatest benediction. I'll give you something even better than that. And he gave him Diksha, initiation to chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this Maha Mantra, just simply coming in contact with this Maha Mantra, one becomes spiritualized. As Prabhupada says, Krishnized. You become purified so that you can associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, Prabhupada says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his most dearest devotee Srimati Radharani, dance on your tongue when you chant Hare Krishna. They dance. We may not be able to perceive the greatness in chanting, the glories of chanting, the taste in chanting, but they enjoy. They enjoy when you chant. And the more your chanting is for their pleasure, the more they enjoy. And naturally you enjoy. Just like how when you water the root of the tree, all the branches and leaves become nourished. In the same way, by serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead and pleasing Him, naturally you'll become peaceful and satisfied. So this is the power of chanting the holy name. And this is our Utsava. Our devotional service is our festival. You want to have a festival every single day? If you have the right consciousness, the Vaikuntha consciousness, regardless of where you may be, you'll feel a festival every single day. And Prabhupada has given us in such a way that we may find it difficult to experience that festival. But Prabhupada has given us a framework or a structure. If you just simply attend the morning program, if you simply chant your rounds in the morning, if you attend Srimad Bhagavatam class, if you do all your activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then offer everything you have to the Supreme Lord, naturally everything you do becomes a festival. Because then the consciousness is just simply for Krishna's pleasure. Right? And if it's for Gopinath's pleasure, naturally you'll be peaceful and satisfied because Krishna is the self of the self. Krishna is the source of us. So naturally by pleasing Krishna, why won't we be satisfied? He is the origin. From Him comes enjoyment. So naturally we'll be peaceful, satisfied, happy. So this Utsava can be experienced not just in Vaikuntha Loka but in this material world. Another example Prabhupada gives of the liberated soul is that the liberated soul's situation is like Swarga Pavarga Narakeshu Apitulyartha Darshana, that Lord Shiva is saying to Parvati. Mother Parvati curses Chitraketu Maharaj, and Chitraketu comes and offers his obeisances or his apologies to Mother Parvati and just accepts her curse and leaves. And Lord Shiva tells his wife that just see that they're not affected. The devotees of the Supreme Lord, whether heaven or hell, they'll continue their service. Narayana paras sarve na kutaschana bibhyati swarga pavarga narakesha apitulyata darshana. That for a pure devotee or a liberated soul, whether they're in heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. Because they'll continue with their devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada says you get a typewriter and you put it in the heavenly planets. What will it do? It'll typewrite. If you put it in the hellish planets, what will it do? It'll typewrite. Or it'll print pages while you type on it. In the same way, the devotee, regardless of where they may be, has understood that their occupational duty or their original occupation, constitutional position is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when they do that, naturally everything they do is a festival. And how does it become uninterrupted? Savai pumsam paro dharma yato bhakti radokshaje ahoy tukiya pratihata yatma suprasidati. second canto Srimad Bhagavatam. There it's mentioned that Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo, the Para Dharma, the greatest occupational duty is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. How? Ahoituki apratihata. Without any ulterior motive, in other words, not for one's own sense gratification, but for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it should be apratihata, or uninterrupted. Uninterrupted. If it's uninterrupted, in other words, that it's continuous devotional service, one always remains in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Naturally, everything one performs is pleasurable, happy. One becomes joyful in their practice of devotional service. But because of our attachments, our devotional service is interrupted. We do some chanting, then we think, okay, yeah, I've chanted my 16 rounds, I can do anything I like. I'll get back into devotional service later. Or we take a break in devotional service, Yeah, yesterday, I woke up really early and chanted my rounds and feeling a bit tired, so I'll take a break. I'll wake up a bit later and do it, Or, when you're performing any, this sort of mentality comes from our trying to enjoy material nature, right? So you perform activities, you work really hard for that couple of hours at the end of the day or the end of the week so that you can enjoy, right? So in the same way, we perform devotional service expecting, a couple of hours for ourselves to do whatever we like. We don't have to be told what to do, we can just do whatever I like. Yes, it's within the purview of devotional service if it's, anything for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But what's even better is that we do that which will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What He wants us to do rather than what we want to do. So that's ahoituki apratihata. And if one performs devotional service with that mood or mentality, then one becomes satisfied. Yayatma suprasiditi. One becomes completely satisfied. And therefore it becomes, one naturally feels the expression of complete happiness. One feels opportunities to always express one's happiness and glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'll finish with this point. It's all about our consciousness. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives an amazing purport where he explains how a devotee perceives or how a devotee's consciousness should be in everyday life. Prabhupada explains there in terms of happiness and distress. Prabhupada explains that when a devotee gets a little bit of happiness, feels satisfied, such a person, he or she does not feel elated. Rather, they always think that actually I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this happiness. Krishna is so kind, He's given me this happiness. Let me invest it back in His service. In this way, let me perform more and more devotional service. And when distress comes upon them, they think, I've done so much, I deserve much worse than this, but Krishna is so kind, He's reduced it. So you can see they bring it back to Krishna. The consciousness is always back to Krishna. Krishna becomes the central point in their life, and they take every opportunity to connect it back to Krishna. So if you see here, then this Utsava, if you want to experience an Utsava, then you can understand that it happens when one's consciousness is dovetailed to Krishna, dovetailed to devotional service. When it's dovetailed to Krishna's service, for Krishna's pleasure, then naturally that happiness comes. One naturally feels satisfied. That's Utsava. That's what you experience as happiness, or a function that takes place to express happiness, also called as Utsava. So I'll end here, I've gone over time. Thank you very much for listening. If there's one or two questions, I can take them. Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, and returned to his own abode. Purport Srila Prabhupada mentioned, return to his own abode indicates that he has his own particular transcendental residence. The question question is, I wanted to ask is it actually referred to Lord Hari or Lord Lord returning to their abode? Which personality is it?
They're the same person. I don't understand that question.
So is it Lord Hari or Lord Lord?
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 Or?
Hari.
Aren't they the same personality? Isn't that what avatar is? Lord Vishnu incarnates as Lord Bor. They're the same person, Krishna. Like yeah, the Lord in the form of the boar, and Lord in the form of four-handed form, Lord in the form of two-handed form, they all eternally exist. They're the same personality, they eternally exist. So when it says going back to Vaikuntha Loka, then you can understand Lord Boar goes to his particular abode within the Vaikuntha planets.
Another thing Prabhupada mentions in the book that avatara means descending from higher regions.
Mm-hmm.
So does it mean that all these forms or incarnations already exist in their own planetary system?
Yes. Yep.
So they're eternally existing.
Yep.
So which they actually appear as and when needed in different universes.
Yep. Yep. You can also understand that there's also mentioned the Lord is still performing his pastimes in these forms, unmanifested to our eyes. Just like the Panchatattva is still dancing, they're still performing their activities on this planet, but you can't see. Supreme Personality of Godhead is still performing his pastimes in Vrindavan Dham, but you can't see. You need the qualification to see. Right? That's eternally existing also. The example given is that there's the sun. When the sun rises on one side and it sets on the other side, doesn't mean the sun ceases to exist. It just goes to the other side of the globe. Same thing with Krishna's incarnations. And they're called incarnations because Prabhupada is saying that they descend from the spiritual world to the material world. That's the reason why they're called avatars. And the reason why they call Mahaprabhu as an avatar or avatari and Krishna as an avatar is that they seem to appear into the material world in the same way, but they're not, they're the origin, they're avatari, they're origin of all avatars. But for their pastime, they appear in the material world in such a way.
So when it's mentioned that they return to their own abode, it means not really returning, but they are
It's up to,
from our vision. Is that right?
it's up to them. They can simultaneously be in their abode. Just like Gopinath is here. Gopinath's in the spiritual world performing his pastimes. And at the same time, there are pastimes he's performing right now that we can't see. So it's his prerogative how and when and what he wants to do. But it's that potency is there with the Lord.
And you mentioned that all these avatars, they appear in Navadvipa as well.
Yes. In Navadvip you can see all of the holy places that exist. It mentions there are 108. 7 and 8 are only present in Kshiradakashaya Vishnu's abode, which is in the ocean of milk. But these two are present in Vaikuntha, in Navadvip. You can go and visit these places if you go on Navadvip Dham Parikrama. No, I'm just saying, in addition to what you're saying, there are 108 holy Divya Deshas, they say, places or transcendental tirthas, pilgrimage sites. Of them, 2, they say you cannot achieve unless you're liberated. You cannot visit those 2 places because that's in the Vaikuntha Loka in this universe known as on the Shira ocean of milk. Lord Kshiradakashaya Vishnu exists there. His abode, and there's another abode there, or another place there. They're the 107th and 108th. But if you want to go and see them in your current state now, or visit them, if you go to Navadvip, you would have achieved seeing all of them. That's the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, I'll end here. Thank you very much for listening. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.